Hi everyone, and welcome to our workshop, More Jobs, Less Work, How to Make More Jobs Come Your Way. I'm Becky, I'll be your host throughout this workshop, and I have worked with Zen Educate since September 2020. I started as a general resourcer, interviewing candidates, vetting candidates, and now I look after the daily supply team. So you'll be hearing from us about all of your short-term roles. Joining me today, we have an amazing panel who I will introduce. So firstly, we've got Lucy. Lucy has been a product manager at Zen for just over a year. Product is really at the heart of how we deliver for our teachers and our schools. Her role is to make sure that Zen Educate app is simple and easy for teachers to use to get work without the hassle. Later in this workshop, we'll also be hearing from one of our outstanding teachers, Francesca. Francesca has worked in long-term roles through Zen for over 2 years. She's worked in a total of 201 days through us and received 100% positive feedback. So she'll be jumping into the workshop at the end to answer any questions you may have, but she's also been in the teaching profession for over 10 years and has in that time has experienced lots of different roles, lots of different age ranges, and has actually worked in over 17 schools full-time. We'll also see a recording from her later where she'll share some tips and strategies on how you can do well on your first day and make a great impression. My colleague Peter is also joining us today. So Peter is another one of our operations team lead here at Zen Educate. Before working at Zen, he taught RE at a secondary school in London for 3 years. He's part of the resourcing team, so is really passionate about helping enthusiastic people come onto our platform so that they can find the perfect role in education, whether that's qualified teachers or people looking for teaching assistant work. So, give you a bit of structure for our session. Today, we'll mainly be focusing on how to make your profile the best it can be, some general tips for getting more work through the Zen Educate app. We'll introduce our app and how it can help you and how to use it. Finding more work by updating your calendar is key, so we'll run through that for you. And then at the end, we'll have a question and answer session and then a little bit more about what Zen Educate do. Before we start, just as a reminder, you can connect with us via Twitter or Facebook, where we share informative and useful information for teachers and TAs. The slides, a recording, and a blog of this workshop will be shared with you all via email after today. So please do feel free to say hi and tell us where you're from. And let's get into it.
Great. So I'm going to now talk you through the process of how to register a profile on Zen Educate. So it's super easy. All you need to do is go to zeneducate.com and hit sign up as a teacher. And then you just put in your personal details, your name and the kind of role that you're looking for, the amount of experience you have, and your address. The great thing about this stage is that you don't need any documents at this stage. So you can just visit zeneducate.com and sign up. It takes about 2 minutes, which is great. So once you've put in your details, like I'm doing just now, you'll then be able to set your preferences. Now, these preferences are really, really important. It tells us the kind of work that you're looking for, whether that's daily supply or long-term, how many days a week you're free, what exact roles you're looking to work in, and the year groups that you would like to support. And all of this data feeds into our platform and means that we can actually match you with jobs that you're going to want to work in. Just a top tip on setting your preferences: if you can kind of widen the net of your preferences, for example, if you can say that you'd like to teach the whole of Key Stage 2 and 3 rather than just year 3 and 4, that will obviously lead to you being matched with more jobs. So yeah. Another important part of it is updating the qualifications that you have. Whenever we see candidates with specific qualifications, we know that those are candidates that schools want to work with. So it's another opportunity for you to say that at the point of registration. The last part of registering is just describing exactly what you're looking for. This is really helpful as it helps the team here at Zen Educate to see, the role that you're looking for, and it can also help schools kind of know if you're a good match with them. So yeah, that's how you can register a profile on zeneducate.com. As I said, it takes about 2 minutes and super easy to do. Great. So once you've registered for a profile on zeneducate.com, you will have a profile. And here's the homepage. I'm now going to walk you through the process of uploading your documents and getting your background vetting checks done. So the first thing you'll need to do is upload your CV. It's super simple to do so. You can see that you can just drag and drop your CV there. The next part of getting your vetting done is uploading your documents. The quicker you can do this, the better, as then our team here can just check those documents. And if there's anything extra we need, we can get in touch. Really important documents that we'll need to see is an enhanced DBS and your right to work document, as well as any other qualifications you may have. So the enhanced DBS, if you don't have one, then we can also help you get one. For that, we'll need 2 proof of address documents, which you can also upload there. The next part is uploading and requesting your references. So here at Zen, we have a policy whereby we need 2 references at least covering the last 2 years of your employment or experience. And if these are school-based references, we'll need the referees to be senior leadership team members or members of the HR or admin in the office, as they have access to safeguarding info. Please do request these, as once you do, then they'll go out to the referees. We also have a safeguarding course, which is free and CPD certified. And then we have the profile. And these are some questions for you to just tell us a bit about yourself. Again, just sell yourself in terms of the experience and the skills you can offer. So you're a great match for future roles. I think my big bit of advice around all of this is to get in and do these document uploading and reference requesting nice and early. Once we have the references requested, we can then chase those referees from Zen Educate, and we can make sure that we get them back and then ultimately help find you a job sooner.
Thanks, Pete. So one question I would like to pose to you all is, what do you think would make a great Zen teacher or TA profile? If you can just post any suggestions or ideas you have in that chat box, then we'll run through some. Anybody got any ideas? Experience, definitely. Yeah, passionate about learning, really important. Thanks, Alma. And knowledge, yeah, Ren, you're not wrong there. Malika, TA qualification, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, and a passion for teaching. They're all really, really good points. So what we will do is I'll ask Peter to then run through what we think makes a really, really strong profile. Obviously, as you've highlighted, experience is really important. Knowledge is really important. Qualifications can help, but it's a lot about the way you frame that as well and the way you present that across to the schools.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's really good ideas from everyone. Thanks, Becky. I think how it looks on the Zen Educate app is that we have a space, as you can see, to upload your CV, but also rather than writing a cover letter, which is very time consuming and often quite difficult to do, that's where we have the profile questions, and they're set questions, around 5 of them, and you just need to answer those questions, and that gives the school a really good impression of what you're looking for and what skills you have. And of course, we also have references. That's a really strong part of a professional profile, because it's a former employer vouching for your skills and experience as well. Thanks so much.
Yeah, definitely. And then here we've got a couple of examples of different profile write-ups. And so there's a really good example here, and there's a not so good example here. So on the left, you can see highlighted in green, you've got a really in-depth, really detailed description of someone's experience and someone's knowledge around teaching and assisting with teaching as well. So it includes a lot of anecdotes, a lot of different things that they've done that have gone well and maybe haven't gone so well, things they've learned from. All of that stuff is really important for schools to be able to read and to be able to understand about your experience. On the right, where it says, tell us a bit about yourself, this person has put, they've got 40 years of experience in a primary school, but then they've only got 3 lines of detail. And that's great, but sometimes you just need to go into a bit more detail there. Okay. So after that, what do you think the ideal profile, once you're verified, would contain for the schools? Has anyone got any ideas for this one? DBS references, definitely. Yeah, so if we move on to the next slide, you can see some examples of what you can see once you are verified. This is what schools will look at on your profile. So Pete, do you want to run us through what we've got here?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the top left, you can see like ratings and stickers that you can get, badges rather, from the schools, and also their thoughts and how they describe you once you've been in a school. A really great feature, I think this is, because it's a way of building up your profile once you start working with us. Schools will then be able to give you this positive feedback, and then that will be clear for other schools for future experience. So they'll be able to see this person, for example, 2 schools think they're very professional, and that you're communicative with staff. Another great thing about the profile is that you have the calendar. So, for example, this candidate, you can see, has blocked off Thursdays in their calendar. They don't want to work there on Thursdays. That's really nice, because then we know that at Zen, so we won't kind of contact you about work, and also schools know that as well. So that gives you kind of more autonomy and flexibility to be able to plan work around your life.
Yeah, so one thing I see when I send people out to daily supply roles is that the feedback that comes back is really important then for their next booking. So when someone receives positive feedback, we will share that with you, and then the schools will be able to see that once they go in to book you. And so if you can go into a school even for just one day and get a piece of positive feedback, it's really, really helpful for you to get more bookings after that. So one example of a really good profile is coming up on the next slide. So this is one of our teachers, Jason. He has been with Zen for over 2 years now. And so he gets booked out most days by schools. He rarely has a free day in his calendar, which is how he likes it. And you can see there's a few points there of what he's done on his profile that have made his profile so great for schools to see. So you can see he's got a professional photo. He has a video introduction, which is really not something we see a lot of candidates do, but if you can do it, it can make the world of difference when a school do come to book you, because they can actually see, your mannerisms, how you are, how you communicate, and you can just do a bit of a self pitch there to make sure the schools know how experienced and how passionate you are. He's also got a detailed list of year groups that he's taught and posts he's held, such as head of subject. I'm not expecting everyone to be a head of subject, but anything you've done or any key achievements are really important to identify. He's got an up-to-date CV, so schools can have a look at that if they want to. He's got a clear summary of how he is as a teacher, so what he enjoys doing, his experience and his key strengths. And then he has filled in a lot of the questions provided by Zen. So we try and frame those questions because we know what schools are looking for. And so if you can answer those questions accurately in a lot of detail, you are more likely to get a lot more bookings. And then he also has the option to publish the positive feedback that he gets. And so that way, like I mentioned before, he can use that to make sure the schools know how good he is. He's also got a lot of SEN experience, which is always handy for schools. Schools love to know that you can be understanding and adaptable. So having SEN experience or being willing to get some SEN experience is always a good thing. So I think we'll just watch Jason's video introduction now so that you can see the example.
Yeah, so pretty much I would say that the profile is the most important aspect. It's really a snapshot of you as a supply teacher. So I think if you can be as thorough, I think it's probably more the key point really, as thorough as possible. So making sure that everything has been completed. So checking when you've completed everything that it's all everything's been included in there. So I'll start with quite simply having a nice professional photo. I mean, so that they can see you really clearly, just to sort of get a sort of an impression of you, looking friendly. And that sort of includes the video as well. So a video would be really, really useful, because my video, a little bit nervous about doing one initially. However, I've had a few comments from some of the schools saying, "Oh, we really liked your video. You came across as really, really nice, and a very good candidate, somebody that we would like to have at our school." So I think that's really, really important. Try to be as detailed as you can when you are listing all of your past experience, particularly the year groups that you've taught in. For myself, as in terms of my experience, I've done from year 1 to secondary, but my preference really is primary. However, I've listed them all when I first started with Zen because I just thought, wow, it's going to widen my chances of getting more work. So I wasn't excluding anything. And also any posts that you might have held, especially in primary school, there'll often be posts like head of music, head of geography. Some schools really like this because they're looking for a specific subject experienced people, especially people that have got a background in geography, especially music's quite a good one as well. Make sure that when you upload your CV that it's really, really that it's the most current one, because often we forget to update our last experience, so schools can really see sort of what you've been up to. That will be uploaded, and then they can normally click on your profile and access that. A very clear summary of you as a teacher, just sort of detailing your key strengths. Normally, when I joined Zen, one of the colleagues at Zen, he did that for me. However, I did talk him through that, so that's something that you can discuss as well. As Mick touched upon earlier, there's some questions in there. If you're looking for more sort of long-term positions, things like describe your behaviour management strategy. What would be your way of dealing with a difficult class? So try and be as focused and detailed as possible, because I think that really does give schools an indication of the kind of candidate that you are. So try and think of as many examples as good examples as you can think of, and I think that does really impress people when they're looking at that particular section. Schools I've been to, some of them have been kind enough to give me some feedback, and they have then forwarded it as something to be published. So you do have the option to publish it. You can read it beforehand, and then that can be uploaded onto your profile. Obviously, it will be nice feedback that you probably want to include, but often that's a very good tool for the profile, because that will show your sort of how good you are, and also it sort of builds up your profile and makes it a very, very strong profile. And as Mick mentioned earlier as well, there's the badges that often schools will give you a rating for those as well, and that will come up in your profile as well as that. Also, lastly, but not by any means less important, but SEN experience is really, really vital, because often many schools, in comprehensive schools or inclusive schools, will have lots of needs of children that will need some support. So if there's any experience that you might have come across, even if you haven't explicitly taught it or haven't dealt with or put anything in place for those children, I think it's quite good to include, because there will be lots and different complex needs and vulnerable children, and I think schools will really, really think that's a great thing. So just try and be as detailed as possible, really.
Yeah, so great. We heard from Jason there a bit more about how to make a detailed profile. After that, what do you think are some other things that you can do to get more work through Zen? Has anybody got any other ideas? Feel free to post them in the box below. Yeah, so we'll just run through to the next slide. So one more thing you can do is open up your preferences. So like Jason said there, he was primary trained, but he'd never tried secondary, but he opened up those preferences and gave it a go. And actually that did lead to him getting a few more bookings. I've definitely seen a lot of the opposite happening as well. So secondary trained teachers wanting to come in and do a bit of daily supply from here to there. And then they open up their preferences and maybe start with Key Stage 2 or even Key Stage 1. And then they go in, try the primary, and they actually really, really enjoy it. So it's just taking those skills that you've learned throughout all your training to then transfer them into a different environment. I know, Pete, you've had some experience of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, with QTS, you are qualified to teach across primary and secondary. And so it's definitely worthwhile looking and kind of, as Jason said, widening your net by kind of considering perhaps year groups slightly kind of further than you might initially. Cool. Another way that you can definitely increase the amount of work that you'll be finding on the Zen Educate platform is by going to your profile and increasing your travel time. So, for example, if you had put down 30 minutes as your maximum travel time to a role, this might be more limiting than obviously if you'd said 60 minutes. So if you can increase your travel time, that again will widen the net in terms of the roles that you'll be seeing and where you could find work through the platform. I think an important thing to add to that is that you will have the final say. If you put 60 minutes, but you're more kind of thinking, I don't want to travel more than 50 minutes, then if one comes in and it's 55, then, you don't have to accept that role. The decision is in your hands, but obviously just increasing that travel time will lead to you seeing more roles and therefore probably finding more work.
Yeah, definitely. And the way it works with the daily supply roles, you're automatically shown for any schools within that travel radius. So it's less about how far you're willing to go. It's more about the timing. So it's really important to make sure that you're happy with what you put down there. The next one you can use to make sure you're getting as much work as possible is to just start off by doing a bit of daily supply. I've seen a lot of people come through that have maybe wanted long-term roles, long-term part-time, long-term full-time, whatever it might be. And the best way to get those roles really is to just get in front of the schools. So by doing a day here and there, 1 or 2 or whatever it might be, we can be very flexible with your calendar. You really are just going into the school and almost treating it like a trial day. So if you go in, make the best impression possible, be as proactive as you can, that school either next time they need supply or if they're looking for someone to come on long term, they're much more likely to think, oh, well, Peter came in, he did a great job in this year, but we need someone for this year. Let's give him a go. Let's either book him again or let's interview him for that long-term role we've got. So starting off by doing daily supply, even if you are looking for a long-term role, is a great way to go. And by doing daily supply, you're not in any way limiting yourself from getting those long-term roles. We obviously see your calendar, and the team that look after the long-term roles will know that you've been, doing X, Y, Z in different schools. Maybe you've got a bit of feedback from your daily supply days, and it's actually going to make you more likely to get those long-term roles.
Great. Another way that you can definitely help yourself to find more work is by uploading your qualifications. So at Zen, we have a team who match our candidates, you, with the perfect role by looking at the data you've provided. Now, if they see a candidate who's uploaded, for example, a cash level 2 related to education, then they're going to very quickly contact that person because they know that many of our schools require such a qualification. So if you do have a qualification, say a cash level or NVQ or higher level teaching assistant qualification, please do go and upload that because then we'll be able to filter that on our system and find you. And our team will be really interested because there's lots of demand for schools for TAs with qualifications and of course for QTS qualified teachers too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last bit of tip I would give you is give SEN and nurseries a go. You don't have to commit for the long term. You don't have to say this is all I want to do, but by giving SEN schools and nurseries a try, you really are just building up that wealth of experience. And it can only be a good thing for when schools then come to book you either for more daily supply or for longer term role. We've got a lot of people on the platform that maybe hadn't done SEN before, or hadn't even done nursery before, but they were happy to give it a go. And by building up those days in those different environments, they've actually then made their experience a lot more almost valuable for the mainstream schools that they've maybe gone into on long-term roles. So I would definitely recommend giving it a go, even if you've not done it before. As long as you've got the enthusiasm and you want to do a good job, you'll be absolutely fine. So what we're going to show you next is a recording from Francesca about how to make a good impression on your first day in a school.
What makes a great supply teacher? It might sound obvious, but it really is 4 or 5 simple things that make the difference between being forgotten or requested for rebooks as a supply teacher. I have experience of this as a full-time class teacher as well as a supply teacher. And first of all, the main thing is that first impressions really do count. So turning up punctually or preferably early, as TAs and teachers often wait to run through days of plans with you. And then being polite, positive and proactive. Introduce yourself, smile, ask for guidance, but also be proactive in reading any plans that are left for you. So don't ask for a run through of lessons if a teacher has left instructions. Read them through first and then try to find out for yourself. If you come across any issues, then obviously seek further help, but the other teachers all have their own classes to set up. So as a supply teacher, you are expected to hit the ground running, and that's the nature of the role. You might find that there are a few bookings where you just have to muddle through a little bit. That's not to say don't do your best, but perhaps you can locate a resource that helps the plan make more sense, or maybe there's a TA to ask rather than the teacher next door. Just use some initiative, it will go a long way. You can try to find displays that outline timings for the day or policies and procedures that you may need to adhere to. There are usually notice boards by the teacher's desk that show playground duties. So are you covering someone that day? There are assembly times, so maybe check, are you expected to stay in with the children or can you leave them there and then return to set up your lesson? Marking, is there a marking policy that they follow? There will be a marking policy that they follow. And if you can't find that policy or anyone to check in with, then I tend to mark with just a simple acknowledgement of the work. And I write supply and usually circle it and put my initials next to it. But every school is different and just try and find out what they do. Positivity and politeness go an incredibly long way. And the thing I get praised for most in schools is just being friendly and getting on with it, which I don't see as me being some amazing teacher. It feels a bit more like common sense and common courtesy, but it works. The last point I'd make is that communication is also key to building the relationships that you will need to establish if you want regular work. Not wasting anyone's time, because we all know teachers don't have much of that, but being thorough and concise with feedback, making sure that anything of any importance is recorded and reported through the appropriate channels. And then if I'm not seeing the teacher at the end of the day, I like to annotate any plans that they left with key feedback. So what worked well, what was tricky, whether any children that needed more input. And then I'll leave a really short note just to thank them for the plans if there were any. And if I enjoyed the day and I want to go back, then I'll try and say something that might make them smile or make me stand out. Maybe an anecdote of the day, or simply say, I really loved teaching, so please remember me because I'd be delighted to come back. And make sure you sign it off so that they know your name, and put from Zen, because then they'll know the agency, and it's just really easy to hand to be able to say, oh, I loved that girl from Zen, or I loved that guy from Zen. Really, all these things are not just for the first day in a school. They can and probably should be done every day in every school. I'm currently in a long-term booking in the same school, but I still make sure that I mark everything, that I feed back accurately, I leave the classroom as I found it, and I say thank you to anyone I work with, particularly the support staff. And it's these little things that really do make the difference and make you stand out as a teacher.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Francesca, for that video. And that's really, really informative. And that will be emailed around to everyone afterwards as well, so you can watch it. So next, we're going to have Lucy introduce a bit more about our app and how to download it.
Hey everyone, so yeah, my name's Lucy. For some of you that joined a bit later on, I've been a product manager at Zen for over a year. And yeah, so we really built the app to be the most user-friendly way for teachers to work through Zen. And it's designed in such a way that it's easy for you to find work, but crucially, we want to make the work come to you. So I'll talk through a couple of ways to make that happen. But if you could all take a moment, if you haven't already, to download the app, that would be great. You can visit the App Store or the Google Play Store, give that a go, search for Zen Educate, you'll see the little blue icon. And yeah, either sign up or log in as Peter showed us earlier. So yeah, I'll give you a moment to go and do that. So yeah, whilst you're doing that, why should you download the app? So our app, it really sets us apart from traditional agencies because it cuts out the middleman. So yeah, all those expensive agency costs we're cutting out. So it means that teachers, TAs and cover supervisors like yourselves will earn more by replacing that with technology in the app. So yeah, do let me know in the chat if you've got any questions or queries about downloading the app, or any questions there, please go ahead, or we can catch them at the end. Cool. All right, well, I might just go ahead and yeah, if you do have any questions, we'll pick them up at the end. Cool, so firstly, how can the app get you more work? And I suppose really the question here is, how do the requests come to you? And we've touched on a couple of these things already, but two very important things that you need to make sure are up to date. So firstly, it's your preferences. So we want to make sure that the requests that are coming to you are actually the best matches for you. And in order for that to happen, your preferences need to be up to date. So these are things like your travel time, and you might expand your travel time to widen your pool of requests, and also opening up your preferences. So maybe that's trying some daily supply, things that Becky mentioned earlier. We actually have a quick video on the right there of how this looks on the app, if you would like to have a look at what your preferences currently are and to update those. So this is how it looks on the app. So you click more in the bottom right hand corner and then preferences, and then you can select work. And here I'm updating my work preferences. So this is where you select what type of work you want to do. So that's daily supply, long-term full-time or long-term part-time, and also which terms you'd like to work, and also how many days per week. So these are all things that you might want to consider expanding to increase the number of requests that you're getting. Cool. So preferences is really the first thing that you're in control of, that you can increase the amount of work coming your way. And the second is your availability. So if we just can go back to the slides, got some points on there. So as Peter mentioned earlier, we really want you to be in control when you work, and we want to let you set your own schedule. We'll only ever contact you when you're available. So it's important that you're updating your calendar and you're confirming your availability for the week, and also confirming your availability in the morning, which is, even better. So so you'll receive a notification through the app every morning saying, are you ready for work today? If you confirm that you're available, then you'll actually bump up higher in the list, because we know that you're ready. So these factors, they really determine whether you show up in searches and how high up you show in those searches for schools. These are really important things to update, and we've got a video there about how to update your availability on the app. Have a look. Cool, so once you log in on the homepage, you'll see your schedule. You can just select a day and provide a reason. So say you have an appointment, you can set that as unavailable, so you won't contact you or won't send you requests on. You can also set, say every Thursday, for example, you don't want to work. You can set that here as well, and just set that to a weekly unavailability. And then, there's a couple more things you can do. So you can also select a day that you've set as unavailable, and you can make changes to this. So say, actually, I'm going to be on holiday for the next 2 weeks, or, that's a longer time. You can set a set amount of time that you're going to be unavailable. Provide a reason for that. Again, we won't send you any requests. Yeah, so just an example of doing that. And you can also remove the unavailability. So say, you know, things change, say, yeah, there was an appointment, or say you had like a childcare thing, and then it's no longer something. So you can just delete that, and we'll set you as available again, and you'll be receiving requests. So that's just a quick overview of how to do that. And hopefully that's fairly straightforward in the app. Cool. So what's next? So what do you do when a request comes in? So if you've signed up to do daily supply work with us, and you're fully verified, as Peter showed us earlier, then you'll show up to schools. So when they log on and search for short-term cover, then you'll show up based on your preferences and your availability. And then if you're requested, you'll get a notification from the app. And when you click through, you'll be able to either accept or decline that role. And doing this on the app is really the fastest way to get work. It's also super easy. So if you accept, then the job is yours. And if you decline, we'll ask you to provide a reason. And this is really important because we want to make sure that we're sending you the correct requests. So it will help improve the matches that we send to you in the future. Also got a short video of how that looks on the app. Yes, so you can see here. So I've just confirmed my availability for the week. Working in a school 2 days this week. And you can see at the top here that yellow banner is one booking request. So I'm going to click on that. And then on the request, you can see all the information about the school. So any parking information, behaviour management, all those types of things that are really important to know before you accept a request. And then here you can either accept or decline. So if you hit accept, then the job is yours. Or if you decline, you'll just have to select a reason. So for example, here it's too far to travel. And that second box there says, don't match me with this school again. So, you know, for reasons like that, it might be, well, if it's too far to travel once, it might be too far to travel, you know, every time. So we then won't send you any requests from that school. So it's really about making sure that you're getting the best matches and the best requests. Cool. So if we move on to the next slide. So it's a little bit different for long-term jobs. So if you've selected long-term, full-time or part-time in your work preferences, then you'll actually be able to browse jobs on the app which match your preferences. And you'll see this on the jobs tab, and you'll be able to mark your interest for a job. So once you do that, your profile won't be shared with the school. Your CV won't be sent to the school at this stage, but it will be visible to our team, and we'll be in contact if your experience matches the job requirements. And they'll take you through all the next steps. But I think the key thing here is that you're much more likely to be considered for the position if you actually put yourself forward for the job. And also another really key thing is to have job alerts on. So as soon as a new job match comes in, you'll get an alert through the app, and that will show on the jobs page. So really important to be the first to get there. So yeah, make sure that your job alerts are switched on and your notifications for the app are switched on. And also have a video for this one. So yes, this is in the jobs page. You can see I've got my job alerts on at the top there. And yeah, really simple. So you'll just hit I'm interested. So you'll be able to see the job description and a little bit about what's required. You can also hide jobs if you know that you're not interested in that one. We'll remove it from the list. And you can also see all the jobs that you've marked interest for in one place. So yeah, so once you do that, our team will see that and we'll be in touch based on your profile. Cool. So kind of the last thing from me is just to mention some new features that we've got on the app. So the first here, so if you've worked at a school before and they're currently hiring for a long-term job and the job matches your preferences, then when you have a booking at that school, you'll now be able to see all these jobs advertised there, so you can self-select for those. And so that's a really nice, if there's a school you've been working at, you've been really enjoying it, you'll be able to see any long-term jobs that they're hiring for and put yourself forward for those. Another really key thing is that we're now an approved tuition partner for the National Tutoring Programme. So you can now mark yourself as a tutor on your preferences page on the app. And we also have a training section, and you can see we've got a tutor training course, which is free. So for those of you who might be interested in tutoring, or you just want to kind of upskill, that's a free course that you can take on our tutoring page there on the app. And lastly, something coming soon is the ability to mark yourself as absent or running late. So obviously we want to make it stress-free when those situations arise, and it's also really important that the school knows as soon as possible, and us. So the quickest way to do that is it will be through the app, and this is something that you'll only be able to do through the app. So that's coming soon. I hope this has been helpful and that you get more work through using the app. Please do provide any feedback to us. It's really helpful to know your thoughts and what's working well and what's not working so well. Our job is to make sure it's easy for you and the work is coming to you. So yeah, do get in touch if you think we could be doing anything better. But yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lucy. Really, really helpful stuff. What we'll do now is a Q&A session. So we've collated some of your questions over that you've posted during the webinar, but feel free to post any more that you might have. So let's begin. First question we received: is it mandatory for the reference to be a former employee? Pete, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, no, absolutely, happy to. So yes, if you have professional experience, then we would need to have a reference from your former employer, especially if that is education based. So if, for example, you have worked in a school, then it's really important we do get a reference from the school you worked in, and that would come from SLT or school HR, because they have access to safeguarding records. So yes, if you have previous experience, then that reference should come from your former employer. Thanks, Becky.
No problem. The next question we got was, can we be a TA if you have no experience and hence no references? So that kind of ties into the question you just answered. Bit of a two-part approach there. So for a TA, no experience doesn't mean that you can't work through Zen. If you've got kind of some experience with maybe outside of a school setting, but still with children, that could be maybe, childcare, babysitting, maybe youth groups, anything like that. You can always use those skills and then apply them to a school setting. And what we would do is we would just introduce you slowly to some sort of maybe mainstream bookings, maybe some of the lower years where you can get a bit more practice as you go. But in terms of the references, Peter, if you want to touch on this, but we would need references even if they're not from a school.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a good thing you can do if you're really serious about giving this a go is you can volunteer perhaps for a couple of weeks at a local school, maybe in a breakfast club or an after school club. Schools are always looking for more support and resource. And so if you do have any connection to a local school, perhaps you have a sibling or someone that you know is at a school, or someone who works at a school, that's a good way of getting some experience in a school and then being able to get a referee from that school.
Yeah, great. Next question, who do we contact to inquire about our profile? Pete, who would you contact?
Yeah, so great question. We have a customer support team here at Zen Educate. You can contact them via email, support@zeneducate, or our phone number, which you can find online. And then they can put you in touch with the most relevant person to kind of progress your profile. I would say if you're really keen for looking for work, again, like we've said a few times throughout this evening's webinar, do make sure you've updated your preferences, your availability, and also uploaded all of those documents, because then that puts you in a really good place. And when the customer support team will look at your profile, they'll know, great, this person's really serious about finding work, and be able to help you from there.
Yeah, definitely. Question kind of leading on from that one. I think, Waleed, this was from you. You registered on Zen, uploaded everything required, but not yet quite approved. Pete, do you know any reasons why that might be?
Yeah, it could be for a few reasons. Perhaps references may not have been submitted by your referees yet. And so we may still be chasing those behind the scenes. But as I say, if I would, again, get in touch with support at Zen, or give us a call, and we'll be able to kind of enlighten you on that in more detail. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, next question. One here, it says, I have teaching assistant level 2. Can I apply for the role of primary supply teacher? So there's a bit of a difference there between TA qualifications and teaching qualifications. Most schools will need you to have QTS to be able to go into teaching roles. Pete, I don't know if you've got anything to add there.
Yeah, so I think if you have a TA qualification, that's really valuable. So we'd love to work with you as a TA. And I'm sure, Francesca, you can jump in here and kind of explain like how as I know as a teacher, how great it is to have a really good TA in your classroom. So if you do have a TA qualification, please do, you're absolutely qualified to work as a TA, but yes, it is a requirement to have qualified teacher status to be a teacher in mainstream schools in the UK. Francesca, would you like to kind of just talk about how great and impactful a good TA can be in the classroom?
Yeah, they are amazing. It makes all the difference, especially as a supply teacher. And actually, there's been a couple of occasions that I've fed back that I've had an amazing TA, and twice they were actually Zen TAs, and I hadn't realised that they were there.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was really nice because the school then got positive feedback without me knowing that they were actually supply TAs. But it can kind of make or break your day sometimes, both ways. But having someone that knows what they're doing and uses their initiative as a TA is just priceless, definitely.
Great, thank you so much.
Definitely. Francesca, have you ever worked out of interest with a TA that maybe hasn't had so much experience before, but they still do a really, really good job?
Yes, loads of times. And I come back to the initiative. If you're good with children and you're there and you want to do your best, that means more than any qualifications, because the flip side of it is I've actually worked with someone quite recently who's had 20 years of experience and got qualifications, and they don't match up half as good as some of the people that just use their initiative and try their best, listen to instructions, follow instructions, don't interrupt when the teacher's teaching, just things that I think are really common sense and simple. But if you're not paying attention to how things work in a school, then it makes all the difference. So it's not always about qualifications.
Yeah, I think as well, thank you so much, Francesca, on that. The Zen interview is a great opportunity for you to kind of share your enthusiasm, strategies that you've thought of around how you could best support children in the classroom with us. So again, if you don't have loads of experience, that's not necessarily a reason to say you can't work. Exactly like Francesca was talking about, those soft skills, how you work with children using your initiative, the more you can bring that out in our conversation at the Zen interview, then the better.
Absolutely. Next question kind of relates to the qualifications. So we've got somebody here, 5 years of experience in teaching in Nigeria, can you then translate that and have a job here? Pete, do you want to just explain about the overseas teaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some countries where you can transfer your teaching qualification into the qualified teacher status of the UK. The majority of those countries are countries in the EU and I think the US as well. Now, I think you can find out exactly a list of those countries very easily on the Department for Education website. If Nigerian teaching qualifications don't transfer across exactly, that's not to say that we can't find you work, but we can absolutely find you work perhaps as a TA or a cover supervisor in our schools, and we'd still love to work with you because, of course, if you have a qualification in teaching from anywhere, then that's a really good indicator that you've taken this seriously and that you really care about the kind of profession.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to what Francesca was saying. You know, if you've got the initiative, you've got the skills, that those are the most important things really to make a difference in the school. One question here. If there's a particular school that you'd like to work at, would it be possible to arrange that? So the thing there is we do obviously work with certain schools, and we can always approach new schools. We have a whole team that are always approaching new schools. And so it's always worth kind of suggesting which school you would like to work in. And it is possible to then have a look and see if they've got any open roles, and one of our team will definitely be on hand to help you out with that one. But the best thing you can do is keep an eye, if it's long term, keep an eye on the jobs tab, see those nearby roles coming through. And then if it's daily supply, you just need to keep an eye on what's coming through day to day. And then, but we can always try and suggest that to the school. Another one there, do you need to be verified before accessing the tutoring program? Pete, I think you know more about that.
Yeah, so I think I want to really stress the point that we can speak to you before your profile is verified, and we can talk to you about roles, and we'd love to hear from you if you're really looking for a role very soon. Again, as Lucy showed you how, go onto the app, update your availability and your preferences, and we'd love to speak to you about that. Once your profile is verified, that's the point at which you can actually go out to work. That means we've done all of the background checks that we need to do, but we can definitely talk to you about opportunities, and we do that on a daily basis with candidates who have just signed up. And obviously, the more you can do with your sign up and upload your documents, then the more likely we can get you out to work quickly. But being verified just means that you're then ready to actually go and work, from the next day.
Thanks, Pete. Just another question there. So why do we ask for 3 different references?
So we don't ask for 3 references. We ask for at least 2 references to cover the last 2 years of your employment or experience. So it has to be at least 2. Now, it could be that we may need sort of a 3rd reference in some instances. For example, if you had been in retail over the last 2 years in, say, 2 different jobs, we would need a reference from those 2 jobs to cover the last 2 years. Say before that you were working as a TA in a primary school for 1 academic year, we would also need that reference because it's the most relevant reference to the role. But the basic rule is that we need 2 references covering the last 2 years of your experience.
Yeah, definitely. Ran, I've just seen your question come through about volunteer experience. So unfortunately, we don't offer voluntary experience through the Zen app, but what we would recommend is you maybe write or call your local primary school, nursery, secondary school, whatever you want to get experience in. We just recommend that you go to them, maybe drop them your CV and say, I've got free time on this day, I'd love to come in and shadow, or I'd love to come in and spend a few days in this class or this class. Because schools are always looking for extra pairs of hands. And as long as you've got, as Francesca mentioned before, the kind of initiative to go and do that and kind of present yourself to the school and offer your services for free, really, just so you can gain some more experience, then I'm sure you'll be very successful. And we can definitely help you, maybe direct you to the right sort of schools, but we don't offer voluntary sort of employment almost through the app. Okay, one other question I saw was, what is it like to be a cover supervisor? Francesca, have you got any experience either working with cover supervisors or maybe being a cover supervisor that you could enlighten us on?
I have been a cover supervisor, I think only a couple of times actually, but generally I don't see the difference between that and being a teacher as a supply teacher, because you go in, you pick up someone else's plans and you run with it really. So the only difference is for a cover, that I think for a cover supervisor, is you will often go to different classes for each lesson, rather than being in one class for the whole day. So you might start off your morning in a year 3 class, then move to a year 2 class, then up to a year 5 class or something like that. But it's really, generally, it will be left with really clear plans, because you're covering something that was already planned to be covered. So it's not usually an absence. So it's kind of a bit clearer on the day. Whereas sometimes when I've been into a school and someone was off sick and they weren't obviously planning to be sick, you turn up and sometimes they're scrabbling around trying to find the plans. Whereas a cover supervisor usually has the resources laid out, the plans laid out. You generally will have your regular TA, so they're really helpful and they know what they're doing. So it can sometimes be easier to be a cover supervisor, even though you're actually going around to lots of different classes.
No, great. Thank you so much, Francesca. That sounds like a really varied role. Probably the last question for this session. So can you get references from lecturers at uni? I hear someone here studying early years education. So Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. A reference from a university lecturer is a really good reference. If that's been your recent experience, then that's great. Please do provide them, especially if it's in early years education, because they'll be able to comment on really relevant information, and their character reference of you will be, talking about education, which is great. Something that I would just like to say about references is they do need to come from professional email addresses rather than a personal, say, Gmail or yahoo.com. And that's just purely so we can actually validate that it's come from the person that they say they are. So for that lecturer, as long as it can come from their university email, that would be a fantastic reference.
Brilliant. Well, that's great. I think that's one last question there. Can a teacher give referees?
Teacher can definitely be a referee if it's So we need to be careful about what kind of teacher. So if you are a teacher and you're looking to get a referee from a previous school, we would need it to come from a member of the SLT or from the kind of admin office HR staff. And the reason for that is that those members of staff in schools have access to the safeguarding information. And we're obliged, because we follow keeping children safe in education, we're obliged to make sure we find out about safeguarding of all candidates on our platform. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your questions. That's it from us. So just one final slide and reminder to connect with us on all these social medias. You can find our website there, our Facebook page, Twitter page, and there'll be a blog about this webinar coming up on the socials, as well as the email you will be sent round. And again, if you've got any questions at all after this, you can always email teachwithus@zeneducate.com. And that's all. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you to our lovely panelists, Francesca and Lucy and Peter, and we'll see you again soon.